Hello, this is Forrest from River City Trucks. Some people that come to us through Facebook, they log on to Marketplace and they'll see our trailers that we have on there for lease. And a lot of times people don't understand what it means. And we're a company. We're not just an individual trying to lease a trailer. I don't think you could, legally, if you owned a trailer and you don't have the licensing through the DBPR in Florida, which is like a finance license, I don't think you can actually legally lease a trailer. And if you did, I don't know if there's any kind of recourse that you could get it back with. So River City Trucks actually has a license to do finance in different things, like if we were to sell vehicles or trucks or even lease trailers or whatever. So that means when people see our trailers, we hope they understand that this is not a for sale. Typically, when you see our trailers advertised on Facebook or other platforms, they'll say things like, this particular trailer I'm talking about says, for lease, $650 per month. That's the actual title. 2018, take three-car hauler for lease. But we still get a ton of people that come to us and say, how much you want for the trailer? And we're like, well, do you want to go through the leasing program? We actually do have a rent-to-own program. What are you talking about? And they'll say, no, how much you want to sell the trailer for? And we're like, well, you can buy the trailer, of course, but it comes at a premium. This particular trailer is super special. It was spec'd out on when we ordered it brand new. It's got, all kind of things. It has four-wheel disc brakes, has 4 piston calipers on each wheel. So there's basically 16 pistons to shut this thing, to stop it. 14-ply tires, 12,000-pound winch, extra wide ramps, all kinds of stuff. It's a Mac Daddy of trailers, but yet it only weighs about 4,700 pounds, has a cantilever suspension system. It's really a good trailer. It has a lot of special things to it. A trailer like that, to sell it would be, $15,000, $18,000. I know we live in a time when there are 3-car haulers on the market that are, dirt cheap. I saw one the other day, it was like $3,000. What are you going to get for a 3-car hauler for $3,000? And then I read further and it was no title, which screams to me they probably financed it and they're trying to sell a trailer that you can't title, you can't use it. Anyway, so let's go over a couple of the rules of the road just real quick. To lease a trailer for River City Trucks, the trailers that we lease, with the exception of the dump trailer, because we have a number of dump trailers too that we lease, but all the car hauler trailers are 3- and 4-car haulers. To lease one of those are all commercial trailers. So to lease it, you have to have either your authority, otherwise known as an MC, or you have to have your DOT, which means you're going to run intrastate in the state of Florida only. You have to have those. Now, you could be that you're leasing on. You haven't done it yet, but you're going to lease on with a company that is an intrastate or interstate company, and in which case then you would be leasing on using their DOT or their MC number. And in that case, what you have to do is provide us with insurance on the trailer through that company. So basically, the easiest way to do it is to call the company you're going to lease on with, give them our information, then give us their information. So when we call them and talk to them, they know who the heck they're talking about, because we have to have a COI or certificate of insurance that shows the trailer's being insured. Of course, that's usual. I mean, even if you bought a trailer from someplace, you're going to have it insured. If you're going to use a trailer in a commercial way, you have to insure the trailer as well. If you get pulled over for DOT inspection, a records inspection, and they ask for registration, you got to have a registration for the truck, registration for the trailer, proof of insurance on the truck, and proof of insurance on that trailer, and proof of cargo insurance on top of that. So that's why we're asking for a COI. Some other rules of the road are, we also require that with the 3- and 4-car haulers, you have a minimum of a 3500 series or F350 series if you're in the Fords, dually pickup truck. And I get so many questions about, why can't I run an F250, or why can't I run a 2500? Why can't I run a 3500 or 350 single rear wheel? Because it doesn't have the stability. And you're talking about a trailer that is going to exceed the rear axle weight when you're loaded of that 2500 series truck, or even the 3500 series truck with a single rear wheel. The most of your 3500 series trucks, 350s with the dual rear wheels, have a rear axle GVWR of 9,900 pounds, Whereas if you look at the GVWR on a single rear wheel 350 or 3500, you're talking about what, 8,600 pounds or something like that, 8,500 pounds, and maybe even a little bit higher, depending on which model it is. If you're an F250, it's definitely around the 8,000 pounds, 7,500, 8,000 pound mark. And therein lies your problem, because as soon as you load 3 cars on there, let's say you were non-CDL and you were going to run under 26,000 pounds or less. Well, you say, well, how much could that weigh? These trailers, and I've had this videos before, on these trailers at the back tires, let's say the back end of the trailer, and on this particular Take 3, you'll notice the back tires sit more forward, which is actually helpful to keep the rear axle weight on the trailer down. Again, another special order item in this trailer. So about 6 feet or so in front of like the front axle, there's tandem axles on this particular trailer. You can have a trailer with 3 axles, but about 6 feet or so in front of that, most of the weight begins to transfer into the truck, or basically into the rear axle. So if you have, let's say you're running non-CDL, this is a good non-CDL trailer. It only weighs about 5,700 pounds. So let's say you're running non-CDL and you're going to run, say, 12,000 pounds worth of cars on there. And there's 3 cars, that's 4,000 pounds apiece. Well, the bag car that's sitting on the back of it, that 4,000 pounds is on the rear axle of the trailer. It's actually cantilevering a little bit to take some of the weight off the front of the trailer, which allows you, of course, you to handle more vehicles. But the problem is the next car up is 4,000 pounds, and a lot of that car is going into the truck. And the next trailer up from that, a lot of that weight is now going in the truck, about 60 to 80%. And if you get anywhere close to that truck, it's 100% is transferring into the rear axle. So if you're a single rear wheel 350 or 3,500, and you've only got 8,600, 8,700 pounds back there. Let's say some of them, the newer ones, may even go up to 8,000 pounds. 8,900 pounds. But let's say that you're at 8,800. Let's just split the difference. Depending on the vehicles, if it's a 4,000 pound vehicle in number 1 spot, number 2 spot, and number 3 spot, you could easily be at 9,500 pounds, which means your rear axle is overloaded. Now, I know everybody says, yeah, but it'll go way past that. The factory says, it's 8,800, but you can get way up there. And you know what? You could be right. The factory is going to go to the lowest number. It's going to say, okay, we've tested and we think the failure is going to occur at around 9,000. So let's call it 8,600 just to be safe. Give ourselves a leeway. Well, there's a reason to give that leeway, because they don't want that axle to fail. Listen, that axle fails on that truck, it's bad news for Bonzo. That thing's going to be going 75 miles an hour down the interstate. The rear axle's going to pop off, and that dually set of wheels, they're locked together on the hub, and off they go to the races. They wind up on the other side on oncoming traffic. Somebody dies over that, right? So therein lies your problem. You don't want to exceed what your rear axle is. And if it's 9,900 pounds on a dually, but it's 8,800 pounds on a single rear wheel on a 350, and then it drops down to like 7,900 pounds on the rear axle on a 250, you're not going to be able to haul 3 cars on that thing. So what good's a 3-car hauler going to do you? That's why in our leasing program, and we have a rent-to-own as well, but in those rent-to-own and leasing programs, we don't allow anybody to come in and lease a commercial trailer, because they're 100% commercial trailers. They're registered to River City Trucks. They're commercial trailers. You can't bypass a way station with your personal cars on there and expect not to get stopped at some point. It's going to happen because it's a commercial trailer. And such is going to require commercial trailer insurance, which is required by the Department of Transportation. So you've got to have a 3,500. You got to have a 350 series to do it. I'm sorry. I wish that it was not that way. Has to be a dually. I'm sorry that was the way it was. But we will not rent those trailers or lease those trailers, do rent, own, or lease those trailers with using anything less than a dually 3,500 and up. 4,500, 5,500, obviously they're okay too. Our semi, we had one guy was running with a semi. And that is to protect the consumer public out there, the guy driving down the highway, but it's also to protect our trailer, and heck, even to protect the people that don't know the difference between what they should be using and should not be using. It protects the driver of the truck and everybody. If you're driving out there, if we allow that trailer to go out, let's just scenario this. If we allow that trailer to go out and it's hooked to your truck and you get pulled in, you go to the weigh station, they see you driving a single rear wheel, and they know the single rear wheel. They know pretty much what they are. They know they're looking at anything 86, 8,700 pounds, anything over that, they're going to pull you in, and you're going to be in trouble. they're going to make you take vehicles off. Is what they're going to do. So if they do that and they pull you in and they make you take vehicles off, what are you going to do then? That's going to be bad news, right? But worse, if they pull you in and they make you embark the trailer, they could do that. They could put you out of service. If you go out of service, you cannot pull that trailer. You have to unhook your truck from the trailer if they put you out of service. You can't just unload the cars at the weigh station and drive the trailer and truck away. They don't allow that to happen. You have to disconnect them. And then if you leave the truck if you leave the trailer there with the vehicles on it, or you try to leave the cars there, they're not going to let that happen. But if you try to leave it there, they're going to write you this massive ticket, and they're going to call somebody to come get that trailer. And that's what we want to avoid, because this all goes down and you wind up losing that trailer and it's towed, the towing bills on those things can be $1,000 plus storage till we can send somebody up there to get it. We're not doing that. It's not worth it. We rent these trailers all the time. We lease these trailers all the time. There's no problem. So we've set the barrier at a 350 or 3500 series pickup truck in a dually fashion. It has to be a dually. You have to have the MC, you have to have your DOT, or you have to lease on. If you're going to lease on, we have to have communications ability between us and the lease on company. We're going to get them to send us a letter saying that you're leasing on, and we're going to send them a copy of your lease or your rent to own documents to them, because they're covering your insurance as well, and they're going to provide us with a COI if you're lease on. So there's a lot of information that has to go back and forth. This is not like going to Home Depot and renting a tool, which, by the way, is kind of a procedure now. You got to have your driver's license. You better hope your picture matches the driver's license at Home Depot. I tried to rent one, and I didn't have a beard. It wouldn't let me rent one. My wife had to do it because she doesn't have a beard. But so when you come and you go to rent a trailer from us, don't be discouraged if we're asking a lot of questions, because we just don't willy-nilly let our trailers go out. We ask a lot of questions. We vet people. There's criteria that we use to do that. And it's not just us that does it. Anybody who is reputable in the business of leasing trailers is going to have a major amount of questions. As you can imagine, just think if you were trying to lease out a trailer, you paid $20,000, $21,000 for it. You can imagine how bad that would be. You wouldn't let it go to anybody, probably. We hate to let them go to just anybody either. So that's why we do what we do. Now, the next thing. I get a lot of people that call us and they ask us, or they come to us through Facebook and they ask us on the car hauler trailers, they say, is this a gooseneck? Can it run a gooseneck? No, can't run a gooseneck. Oh, why not? Why can't you run a gooseneck? There's nothing wrong with a gooseneck. And they do make gooseneck adapters for the 3 and 4 car haulers. They don't really make them, I don't think, for the 5 and above that. But the 3 and 4 car haulers, typically they have some goosenecks. The reason we don't run the goosenecks adapters on these, and the reason you shouldn't run the gooseneck adapters on these, is imagine this. You have the choice of running a kingpin, right? You can run a kingpin on there. If you're running a kingpin on it, you have the kingpin on most of these trucks is probably a good, about 3 inches in diameter, and then it has steel jaws that are at least a 2-inch thickness of steel jaws that clamp them in. It locks down, and it also pivots forwards, right? And it pivots side to side, so it has an axis that it can pivot on. Which, of course, if you have a gooseneck ball, it can do the same thing. The problem is that with that gooseneck ball, at the shank end of the gooseneck ball where you're connecting, it's about that big versus something that's that big. There's the difference. So that's why the Department of Transportation requires, if you're running a gooseneck of any kind, they require you to run chains. And here's the problem. If you run a pure gooseneck trailer, right, a gooseneck trailer, flatbed, say, or they make car haulers in gooseneck, the difference between that and running a wedge with a gooseneck is that the true gooseneck trailer, the way the weight is slung on it is different than if you're running a wedge. A wedge has a vehicle up over top of the bed, directly over top of that ball. So that ball is absorbing a lot of weight on top of it, whereas a gooseneck trailer, the ball doesn't absorb as much weight because there's nothing sitting over top of it. Just the framing of the trailer goes back to the back end. So that's why we don't allow for our trailers to be rented with gooseneck adapters. They have to have the fifth wheel or kingpin is what it really is. The good news is that on the Ford product and some of the others, but on the Ford product, they sell a kingpin adapter that slips in right where the gooseneck ball does, and you can find them used. I mean, new, they're about $1,600, $1,800 for the whole setup. but you can buy them. I've seen them used for like $300 and $500. You buy one of those, and it's a much better setup. Number one, when you use the Kingpin, it's easier to back your truck into. It's like a semi. You just back underneath it. You'll hear it click into place. You pull the lock and you set the pin, and you're ready to go. You don't have this, even with cameras in the beds, like our trucks have cameras in the beds. And so, if you have a gooseneck ball there, even with a camera in the bed, you're trying to position it, trying to figure it out. You're in and out of the truck. And then finally you get it right and you let it down on top of it. And there's none of that with a fifth wheel. So the Kingpin setup is definitely the way to go as the Kingpin. So that's why we don't allow the goosenecks to be run on our trailers. The next thing is we also, in full disclosure, and we have you sign this, there is a tracking device in the trailer. It's in the trailer wherever it's at, and that tracking device, there's a battery. All these trailers have batteries because they have a winch. But let's say the battery went bad. Let's say you disconnected the battery. If you disconnect the battery, that tracking device alerts us that the battery's dead or disconnected. It can tell the difference. If it said it's dead, that's one thing. If it says it's disconnected, well, then we got to wonder, and we can go get that trailer if we have to, because it'll know where it's at. Because the tracking device that we put in actually can last up to 90 days without the battery being hooked up. We've seen them. We only had one that did that, and the guy actually had some problems, I guess, financially or whatever, and stopped driving. But he abandoned our trailer at a storage lot in Atlanta, just took it in there and abandoned it. Luckily, we saw it hadn't been moved. It was sitting in a storage lot. And then I guess he took the battery out because I guess he just put it in the trailer, or he'd bought it himself or something. And he took the battery out. When he did, it alerted us. So we were able to find out it was at this storage lot. We called him and said, yeah, we haven't heard from that guy. He dropped it off here a couple months ago, and it's been here. He paid for the first month and paid for the second month. We're going to do what we got to do. So there's a tracking device on all of our trailers so we can figure that out, which if something happened, we'd be able to help you out with it too, because we track it wherever it goes. As far as everything else on the trailer, as far as the maintenance goes on a trailer, whoever rents the trailer is responsible for tires, because you're wearing the tires. You got to figure that. You're also responsible for greasing the bearings. We have a maintenance thing that we require you to do that, depending on how many miles and stuff you're going, about every 2 weeks, you're going to probably need to, if you're driving like you to make money, about every 2 weeks, we want you to grease the bearings. It's real easy. We actually provide the grease and the grease gun, for it. If you're out on the road and you run out of grease, you buy the grease, we'll reimburse you. We actually just take it off the next month's lease, whatever you paid for that thing. And, so as far as other maintenance goes, you are required to, we give you a solar panel charger for the battery that's on board, where you're required to, when you're not using the truck and it's sitting your trailer, you can just leave that on there. So make sure the battery tender stays in good shape. As far as other responsibilities, you're just responsible for making sure when you put the ramps back on, you put the locks on them so nobody steals the ramps. Those aluminum ramps can get kind of expensive. Comes with 7-foot aluminum ramps on it. So you want to make sure you lock those. And everything else, there's really much not that much more maintenance that have to be done on like a truck, right? So anyway, I just want to clarify those points, so that if you do want to lease a trailer from us, those are the things, right? So you have to have an MC, you have to have a DOT. If you're only running in the state of Florida, you can get away with a DOT and run intrastate. If you're going to run out of Florida, you got to have an MC. If not, you got to have a lease on documents and lease on company. You got to give us all that information. The trailer will not leave us without that. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the difference between a rent-to-own and a regular lease. So a regular lease requires a $1,500 security deposit, which when you're done using the trailer, you can bring the trailer back as long as it's not damaged and the brakes aren't worn off of it and the tires aren't worn off of it. You're going to get the $1,500 back. Now, if you go, and then of course you're going to pay $650 a month for this particular trailer. The 4-car haulers are like $950 a month. They're much more expensive. So if you decide to go with a rent-to-own program, there's a $2,000 security deposit, and what that does, you're going to make the payment on the thing, the monthly rental on it, of $650. Now, why would you do rent-to-own? Somebody asked me one time, said, "Why rent-to-own? Why not finance a trailer?" I said, well, one, we don't finance trailers. You'd have to go get outside financing. But when you finance a trailer, it's yours. If you decide one day, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore, I don't feel good at it anymore, I want to quit, then you got to sell that trailer. And then you're the guy, got your trailer listed on Facebook for $3,000 to $5,000, because there's a lot of them on there right now, and it's driving the price of these things way down. The only bad thing is that most of those trailers that are on there for the really cheap trailers are junk. I mean, they've been wore out. They have rusted frames. They have bad wheel bearings. You have to replace axles, bent axles, wear the tires out, all sorts of stuff that's wrong with those trailers. So you go out and you pay $4,000 or $5,000 for this trailer, and woohoo, I got a really good deal. And then you wind up, spending $2,000 or $3,000 getting axles and tires and everything else done on it, or more, depending on lighting and all kinds of stuff that can be wrong with them. So in the rent-to-own program, you're putting up a $2,000 security deposit, and then you're going to spend $650 a month. And again, if you get 6 months down, decide you want to do it, you bring the trailer back as long as it's in good shape, we'll give you your security deposit back. If you do decide that you want to keep it and you're going to continue to use it, in about 20 months of making those $650 payments, in about 20 months, then we convert the security deposit to the purchase of the trailer. And so then it's yours. We give you the title to it. We actually handle the titling. So we'll retitle it in your name, and then you'll receive the title in the mail. You have to get a tag, which we'll work out. We'll get the tag for you. And by the way, the title transfer, the sales tax, which is going to include all the payments that you made, the sales tax on the amount that you paid for the trailer, and then of course the tag transfer is all included in that, by the way. So there's no additional cost to you. You'll just pay the $650 a month for the 20 months. And at the end of the 20 months, we convert the security deposit into purchase. So it goes in the purchase price, and that leaves you with a zero balance. And then so it's your trailer after that. So that's the two programs we have. We have the leasing program, which is $1,500, and the stipulations that we talked about, and $650 a month, or the rent-to-own program, which is $2,000 in a security deposit and the same $650 a month. And at the end of 20 months, it rolls over into the purchase price, and then the trailer is yours. You get the title and tag and everything from us, and it'll be all yours. So I hope this has clarified a few things. I know this ran a little long, but if you do decide you want to do that, you can simply contact us via email, or you can call us. You can look us up for rivercitytrucks.com, and I'll put that down in the thing there so you'll be able to see it, and we'll get your trailer ready for you, and you'll go out and make some money. These trailers do make money, that's for sure.